So we have some examples of things that have been printed around the studio. Here is a smaller version of this same print that is continuing to print right now. And this was just an example that was done really fast. This was done as an example and not finished, and you can tell it's a little bit messy at the bottom. If you look in the inside, you can see kind of a little swirl of extra clay. This example, we just left the texture of the printer. Now, some people like to make the printer, you can't even tell this is printed, I would assume, but they like to smooth away the texture of the print, and that's fine. This is a tool that you're using to print, and so the printer texture isn't important unless you choose it to be. Now, this particular person, it wouldn't have printed this way, right? There's a gap here, and it can't stop. It can't stop printing and leave a hole in the middle. What this person did is they printed it this way, right? And it was able to print essentially around, and it did a loop for this section. She actually printed this in two pieces, so there was a split here, this printed and that printed. I can't remember exactly why she chose to print it that way, but that gives you an idea that you can print it in separate parts. This was a shape that we got basically from the company or from Tinkercad or something like that. This was a shape that a student designed, so she took a couple of shapes in Tinkercad and messed with them. So she added these little things that stuck out on the sides. Now this again is just a practice piece, it's not finished. She had several that she printed in different sizes, and some of them she smoothed the outside of them, some of them she glazed differently. We do have a little glazed piece here. And one of the interesting things about this is because of the speed it was printed at, it's actually warped a little. It was a symmetrical piece that was even on both sides, but it's for some reason squished over to one side, and it may have been that it was printing very fast, and it just kind of leaned a little bit that way. And then this piece here is fun because this person designed the bottom, so up to about the neck of this monster thing, it's been printed, and you can see the lines of printing. He couldn't figure out how to do the head, and so what he did was a pinch pot head that he's then attached to the clay. Printed clay plus hand-built clay, you can attach them together and you can make a form that you couldn't make either way by itself. I also want to point out to you here, this long, skinny shape of the tail only works because of the angle at which they go up. I've had students who tried to have a really wide piece get really narrow very quickly, and the issue is each level that prints needs to be on top of the level before it. Otherwise they won't have anything to stick to. So sometimes you find that out, you've made it in Tinkercad, you think it'll be fine. When we pull it into Simplify 3D, we find out, oh shoot, this shape can't work. But we can go back into Tinkercad and mess with it and adjust it until it will work. I've got one other example here to show you, or I guess two together, and that is these vases. So these are just vases that came with the printer, basically. They gave us these. But this is how it prints, and you see that it can't print the handle, right? It can't print that gap. So it has it's a smaller space, and if we had cut this when it was wet, if we had cut that out, we would have been able to have that handle so that you could actually use it. Now we did cut it out on this piece, but we just kind of left it kind of sloppy so you could see. But you, in doing your own work, if you want a gap like that, you could plan for it to have essentially a bridge there of clay that you then remove later on. So remember that this is printing clay, meaning you can keep working with it after it's printed. Thanks.